The arena fell silent the moment whispers turned into a scene. John Cena and Triple H locked in a fierce backstage confrontation. Fans couldn't believe what they were seeing as cameras caught the first flashes of chaos. The night was billed as triumphant, returns, celebrations, and a promise of a memorable main event. But an unexpected storm brewed behind the curtains. What started as a whispered dispute exploded into a full-on argument between two of wrestling's most powerful figures. Viewers on social media went wild within seconds, sharing grainy clips and frantic takes. Cena, usually the composed voice of reason and unity, seemed different tonight, charged, impatient, and unwilling to bend on a point he clearly felt mattered. The game, Triple H, responded with a cold, controlled fury that suggested this was not just about a single creative change. The crowd erupted into chaos as fans debated whether this was a work segment or something deeper. Insiders say the blow-up began over a last-minute rewrite that altered Cena's return moment. Cena felt the tweak diminished the emotional impact he'd planned. Triple H argued the change served a longer strategic arc. Voices rose. Nearby talent pretended to be on phones, but everyone heard the exchange. "I'm not going to let this be watered down," an eyewitness reports Cena saying, his tone sharp. Triple H fired back, reminding Cena about pacing, ratings, and the bigger picture. The rift grew public as staff rushed to separate conversations into hushed tones. Fans couldn't believe how quickly a backstage spat became the night's headline. This wasn't a simple clash of egos. Veterans who've been inside the wrestling machine for decades felt the tension was rooted in deeper disagreements, creative control, legacy, and who gets to shape the next chapter of WWE. Viewers on social media went wild as takes proliferated. Some called Cena justified, others backed Triple H's vision for sustained storytelling. Cameras captured fleeting moments, a slammed locker, a turn back, a deep breath, and each image became fodder for instant analysis across forums. Officials intervened and the argument ended publicly, but the energy didn't dissipate. It spread. Wrestlers exchanged looks. Producers whispered. And just when the WWE Universe thought the night would return to normal, a single text message passed in the locker room promised everything was about to escalate. Fans couldn't stop refreshing feeds. What would happen next? Stay tuned, because what Cena said next, off camera, rewrote the blueprint for the entire evening. The footage alone wasn't enough. It was the whispers that followed which turned a backstage spat into a full-blown scandal. Viewers on social media went wild, and the WWE locker room braced for fallout. Reports now suggest the confrontation was more than creative disagreement. It revealed a fracture in how WWE's top talent and management view respect and ownership of storylines. Cena's frustration reportedly stemmed from repeated last-minute changes. He felt undermined his long-term plans. Triple H, whose theater craft and production instincts are legendary, argued that live TV forces adaptability. Fans couldn't believe the contrast. Cena's old-school focus on promo beats versus Triple H's modern storyline calculus. The crowd erupted into chaos online. Which philosophy would win? Inside the corridors, sources told our team that a heated debate turned into a debate over influence. Cena invoked loyalty to the locker room and the audience. Triple H mentioned the need to protect television momentum and ratings. Wrestlers who overheard the exchange described a raw, almost gladiatorial tone. Neither man backing down. Viewers on social media went wild, speculating about whether this confrontation would be smoothed over or simmer into something much more public. The stakes felt enormous because both figures carry real weight. Cena with decades of star power and Triple H with executive clout. More troubling for some was the suggestion that this clash was symptomatic of simmering tension about the company's direction. Changes in creative leadership, different philosophies on how to build stars, and questions about who gets final say were all whispered in the wake of the argument. Fans couldn't believe such institutional debates would erupt in full view of talent and staff. Meanwhile, producers worked feverishly to keep the show on track, but Insider's Seymour Hour was affected. Some performers felt less willing to improvise under the pressure of internal politics. As the night unfolded, clips of the exchange spread like wildfire. Viewers on social media went wild with GIFs, memes, and hot takes. Commentators, who were supposed to steer the broadcast toward the main event, found themselves fielding questions about stewardship and trust instead. Backstage, alliances formed quietly, people who had worked with Cena offering support, others siding with Triple H's insistence on protecting long-term narratives. The locker room felt the tremor. This could be a turning point. But behind the closed doors, an even darker revelation surfaced, and when it hit the light, everyone realized the fallout would not be contained to tonight alone. A single source clip changed everything, and when it landed in the hands of backstage staff, the rumor mill went into overdrive. Fans couldn't believe the details that followed. After the initial outburst, whispers turned to concrete allegations. The argument touched on paycheck priorities, screen time promises, and long-term creative commitments that some felt were being reneged upon. Triple H allegedly emphasized corporate strategy and international market demands. Cena pushed back hard, talking about legacy, fan trust, and the integrity of the moment. Viewers on social media went wild with speculation, and veteran wrestlers shared private messages saying they sensed a shift in how decisions were being made. The crowd erupted into chaos as talent started to fear this could impact upcoming match cards and contract renewals. Inside sources claimed the conflict also involved a veteran producer who supposedly rewrote Cena's segment without fully consulting him, triggering Cena's frustration. Triple H defended the move as necessary for the show's pacing, but the gesture was perceived by Cena as a pattern of sidelining top talent's vision. Fans couldn't believe how a single creative tweak spiraled into questions about respect and authority. As more witnesses came forward, a portrait emerged of two philosophies colliding, one built on ring psychology and crowd payoff, the other on episodic television style plotting. The energy backstage turned cautious. Performers who had been planning their spots for months found themselves re-evaluating how their work would be presented live. Producers huddled, nervous about leaks and narrative coherence. Viewers on social media went wild, dissecting each clip for signs of a deeper rift. Commentators began to reframe their segments, inserting more context as speculation mounted. Meanwhile, the WWE Universe watched, hungry for confirmation or denial. And for the first time in years, the internal machinery that creates telegraphed drama looked fragile. Insiders also reported that legal and booking teams quietly convened after the exchange, concerned about potential PR impact. The fact that two of WWE's most public figures were embroiled in this dispute made this situation combustible. Fans couldn't believe the chain reaction. A whisper, a clip, a meeting, and suddenly the entire company's plans seemed at risk. Even those who weren't inside the room felt the tremor through social channels and backstage chatter. Then, out of nowhere, an unverified voice memo leaked, and what it said next promised to redraw the lines of power. Inside WWE, a leaked voice memo circulated within minutes, and when it hit public channels, viewers on social media went wild. The Backstage Disagreement had escalated to a public spectacle. Fans couldn't believe the audio's implications. The clip, imperfect and raw, captured a tense exchange, a tone of warning, a hint of betrayal, and a reference to decisions made without consultation. While voices were muffled, the implication was clear. Trust had been strained. Triple H's camp alleged this was standard creative decision-making. Cena's supporters insisted it was about respect and the right to shape one's return. The crowd erupted into chaos online as debates raged. Was the memo authentic? Who leaked it? Why now? The timing suggested an intent to influence public opinion. and that alone changed the dynamics of the dispute. Backstage, reactions ranged from shock to anger. Some performers felt exposed, watching private battles spill into public channels. Others, more cynical, expected leaks as part of the wrestling ecosystem, a way to build heat. But many were unsettled. Trust, once fractured, is hard to rebuild, and both camps realized the battle had moved beyond creative notes into the realm of reputation. Viewers on social media went wild, tagging wrestlers and executives, demanding transparency and answers. Production teams scrambled for damage control, balancing the immediate need to finish the show with the growing public relations crisis. Amid the chaos, an unexpected player stepped forward, a senior locker room veteran who attempted to mediate, reminding both sides of their shared history and the bigger picture. For a moment, the tension cooled, and a fragile truce seemed possible. Yet within hours, new rumors suggested the issue wasn't just about a single promo. It related to how the company intended to roll out its next major event, and who would be prioritized as the face of that rollout. Fans couldn't believe the complexity behind what first looked like a single, heated exchange. As night turned to morning, stakeholders realized that this moment could mark either a fresh start, honest conversations and clearer processes, or a long, public power struggle. The fandom watched every move, and social media became a battleground of its own. The locker room read the mood. Nothing would be the same. And then an anonymous memo landed in the hands of multiple news outlets. A memo that named names and threatened to change contracts forever. The memo was the final blow, and when it leaked, the entire WWE universe felt it. Viewers on social media went wild as the document named names, dates, and decisions that painted a far uglier picture than anyone expected. Fans couldn't believe what they were reading. The leaked memo alleged that certain creative choices had been prioritized for corporate partners and international market pushes, sometimes at the expense of talent-led storytelling. It suggested a tension between business imperatives and the traditional, boots-on-the-ground craft of wrestlers building moments. Cena's side viewed the memo as confirmation of long-held suspicions. Triple H's supporters claimed selective editing and misinterpretation. The crowd erupted into chaos in comment sections, as pundits argued whether the leak was a calculated strike or a whistleblower moment for creative transparency. In the locker room, emotions ran high. Some wrestlers felt betrayed, believing their efforts had been reshaped to meet corporate directives. Others remained pragmatic, insisting that television demands trade-offs. Contracts were reviewed in quiet corners. Managers scrubbed schedules. Executives convened emergency calls, trying to limit reputational damage. Viewers on social media went wild, trending hashtags multiplying by the minute. Sponsors grew anxious, and the board began asking questions. The stakes had skyrocketed from a backstage spat to a potential governance issue. Despite the chaos, a rare honesty emerged. Talent and management were forced into conversations that had been postponed for years. Cena, Triple H, and senior executives found themselves negotiating not just promos, but principles. Who defines the stories? Who protects the performers? And how to balance creative integrity with business survival. Fans couldn't believe the drama now involved legal teams, booking calendars, and public statements. The company faced a choice: bury the leak and risk deeper resentment, or address it openly and possibly set a new precedent. As the dust settled, both Cena and Triple H issued terse public statements, professional, careful, and far from reconciliatory. The locker room watched closely, outcomes uncertain, and while some fans hoped for fireworks, turned into fantastic storylines. Others feared the machine that produces entertainment had suffered irreparable strain. The decisions made in the next 72 hours will decide careers, match cards, and perhaps the future face of WWE. And the world will be watching every move.